In our strategic planning meeting for November the 19th, so I'll call this meeting to order. Could I get a motion on the minutes?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
15?
Second.
All right, with no objections, they'll stand as recorded. We do have a couple of ARPA funds that we need to go over today. I'm gonna turn it over to Councilwoman Burrs to let her tee up this first one anyway. Councilwoman Burrs?
Yes, sir. I believe this is the one for the partnership.
Partnership. Mm-hmm.
And if you'll remember, when we went over the budget last spring, all of the ARPA funds were part of the presentation that Ryan gave, and council decided, no, we wanted to consider them separately. And this is the only one that I know of that we haven't considered, and we need to go ahead and go over that today and bring closure.
Okay, all right.
Yes. So we received a request from Partnership for Families, Children, and Adults, the administration did, for some ARPA funding to supplement their domestic violence shelter. So what we have done is placed an item for the city council's consideration on future considerations for $250,000 of unallocated ARPA funds for the domestic violence shelter. Obviously, this is something making sure that we can provide shelter services and to victims of domestic violence is obviously incredibly important to Mayor Kelly. And so this funding would be a one-time source of funding. Again, the amount would be $250,000. This would be in addition to the funding that Partnership currently receives for services under their existing RFPs. So some of you may remember, we have agencies that are under four-year RFPs, four-year contracts. Partnership receives $80,000 under that four-year RFP contract. And so this would be an additional one-time amount. And so today, to go through the slides, we have Mr. John Jackson, President of the Board for Partnership Families, Children, and Adults. And then joining him is Kevin Hyde, CEO of Partnership for Families, Children, and Adults. So I'm going to ask them to come up. And John, I'm happy to run through your slides for you.
Sure. Yeah. All right. Thank you all. So I am the president of the board of directors of Partnership, and I'm joined here with the CEO, Kevin Hyde. And we really appreciate you all making time to hear us today. We have, and you can see, you want to move the slide ahead. Essential support services, and this is just background. We're not going to read every line of this, but the partnership provides essential services that are not duplicated by anyone else. We provide a domestic violence shelter for specific persons, and these persons have an active abuser, and they register with the high lethality assessment. So if they meet those two criteria, they come to our shelter. If they don't, we refer them to other agencies, because we are the only one in this area in Hamilton and Marion counties that provides a domestic violence shelter that houses people. As you can see, some of our referrals come from the 24/7 crisis hotline. We fielded over 1,500 crisis hotline calls last year. Under the Rape Crisis Center, which is also housed within our domestic violence shelter, we completed 137 forensic exams last year, second highest in 29 years we handled last year. A domestic violence shelter, as you can see, provides emergency housing and support for those escaping domestic violence. We supported almost 1,800 individuals and their children, provided 8,528 recovery services, and ensured 13,487 safe stays. And what that translates to is that when we have usually a family that comes to our shelter, because you may have an abuser that has the physical space where the family lives, they have nowhere else to go. So they stay with us. We provide stability. We get them away from their abuser. And we provide wraparound services, including counseling and advocacy if they need it in court. also case management services. And that all happens at our domestic violence shelter. We have so much traffic at our shelter that the reason for our ask today is that the shelter hasn't been upgraded in a long time, and it's run down. This is a place where people who have experienced abuse live for an extended period of time, often several months, and I think the average is what, Kevin, 6 months?
4 to 6 months.
4 to 6 months. And so this isn't just a transitory thing that's overnight. This is a place that they stay for months. It's a service that's not provided by anyone else in the area. And so we come to you, first of all, grateful that you all gave us the $80,000 to help us upgrade portions of the Rape Crisis Center. This request that we make today is the domestic violence shelter outside of the Rape Crisis Center, which is more of the residential area of our building. It's all in one big building. It's 113 years old. And so it needs some help. And so if you could put it on the next slide. There we
You
go.
have a question now, Councilwoman?
Yeah. And
Actually, no. I really think that this one-time thing should go for the shelter. It's needed. The services aren't replicated anywhere else. Where the Rape Crisis Center is going to be is still in discussion, but this one-time thing for the shelter itself is a no-brainer. It should happen. It's very supportive for the other services in the city. Just wanted to put my 2 cents in because so when we met, I suggested that we just talk about the shelter because it's such a necessary issue. And I just wanted to know that as far as the shelter is concerned, it's something that we should do this one-time funding for.
Councilman Ledford, something for now, or?
Yes, sir. If you don't mind, I appreciate the door being opened by Councilwoman Burrs because I've toured this facility with General Hyde. And I'm sure many others have on council. And I just want to also say that this is very much needed. If you have seen firsthand the situation, I think that this is not only important, but it adds a level of dignity to the service and dignity to the folks who are needing help that I think is very appropriate. So I just wanted to say that.
So it looks like you've got maybe how this $250 will be spent as far as the
Yes, sir.
renovations. You want to go over that?
Mr. Hyde can address that better than me.
Okay.
Yes, sir. We're looking at the client level floors where they are every day. To give a little context, the bed night is one person for one night in the shelter. It's a representative of workload and wear and tear on the facility. That 13,500 bed nights is up 22% year over year and up 66% over 3 years. So despite the significant capital investments over the last 5 and 10 years by the partnership board, the wear and tear is high, the use is high, and these families use this for all of the common functions. That number of people, for instance, taking baths, giving children baths, cooking their own meals in the kitchen, which is a part of their therapy, and building the parental skills for custody. So there's high wear and tear. Hence, you see all the communal bathrooms, the halls, the kitchens, and of course, security systems always need to be maintained and upgraded. This is, as John said, for folks who have an active abuser and a high lethality assessment. So the protocols and layers of security that are not visibly evident are nevertheless there to help ensure the safety and security of these most vulnerable in our community.
Any other questions about Councilman Allen? Funding fees?
I'll just make the
Vice
point
Chair.
that I really appreciate what you all do, and having been in the facility, I understand the need, and I'm thankful that there is this money that we can allocate from ARPA, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Is there Councilwoman?
Yes, ma'am.
I ditto my colleagues, because the work that you all do is very important to our community to make sure that we have a safe space for people that's escaping domestic violence and, even those that utilize the rape crisis center, like making sure that we are able to provide them with the kits that's needed, not just for our women. We have men that experience domestic violence and being raped as well. But touring the facility, it hits different when, versus if you've experienced the same thing and had to live inside those quarters. So I appreciate all the work that you guys do. I will continue to always be a champion for you guys in the work that you all do. And also just having the opportunity to continue to come back and volunteer in those spaces too. You all just, have a lot of services that the community members need and desire. I wish we could give you more money outside of the $80,000 that we give you. And it was conversations then when we had the presentation about why are we only limiting this organization $80,000 when the work that you do is so needed and is impactful to our community. But I agree wholeheartedly that the one-time $250 is most definitely needed.
Yes, sir.
Councilman Hector?
I agree with all my colleagues. Who are some of the other agencies that fund you guys?
So a large percentage of our funding comes from Office of Criminal Justice Programs, and the subordinate to that are Victim of Crime Act funding, which flows from under that. Over the 3-year period culminating next year, or actually already this year, we've increased our funding from the local community by over 70% and trying to diversify that funding for all of our victim services, from the 24/7 crisis hotline, the rape crisis center, the domestic violence shelter, and the counseling services. The total budget for that is, to give you a little perspective, about $3 million, of which 80,000 of that right now comes from the city.
Thank you. Keep up the good work.
To address your question, thank you. And we did have 2 people in the Rape Crisis Center, age 16 and 19, this weekend. And we close with this quote for the record, just to show what a difference a little bit of money in a facility makes. Despite that all of us around this table, what we probably view as home, the shelter where some of the people we see come is evidenced by this quote, often the best place they've ever been. In some ways, that's horribly sad, but thankfully, and thanks to your support, it remains there for them.
So council, obviously, we're not having a meeting next week, but this will be on our agenda
For the third.
for the 3rd of December, following our break next week. So everybody got their questions answered. We're good for
Yeah.
having this on the agenda for the 3rd. Okay. All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Dr.
Thank you
Burks,
all.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Chief, I think we have an update on one of our recipients today as well, correct?
We do. So we have been, for our past several strategic planning city council meetings, we have been doing some impact presentations for past ARPA award recipients. So today, I would like to invite Mr. Michael Gordon, CEO of the Pursuit of Happiness, to present. The Pursuit of Happiness had a youth mentorship initiative. Their award amount was $500,000, and so you can see information up here on the screen related to some of the work that they're going to do. But Mr. Gordon, do you want to introduce the 2 folks that you have here with you too?
I do. First, I have Wilson Jackson. With the ARPA money, we were able to bring in Wilson. He is a master's level clinician. He is on path to become a marriage and family therapy with an LSW. Correct. And Tracy is my right hand. With the ARPA money, we were able to hire Tracy. Tracy is over all of our operations, referrals, and making sure everything is done correctly. Yeah.
Very good.
Well, you can leave it on that slide for a second. I just want to first come in and thank everyone for inviting us here today. Want to thank Mayor Kelly, for giving us the opportunity to receive the ARPA funds, and special thank you to the grants team, Shelby and Christine and Chelsea. the hours we've spent in their office, you know, and the patience that they have had with us have just really catapulted us, you know, to this finish line.
That's great.
So, there are a couple quick videos on there. If
You wanna play
would-
video?
yeah, just play that first one.
Okay.
This one talks about the apprenticeship program that we started. Started an apprenticeship program at Howard, Brainerd, and East Ridge. At Brainerd, I was able to use some influence to get some members of our community that own are some CEOs of banks, and they've gone over to Brainerd and donated hundreds and hundreds of hours to the Brainerd students there. And we developed a business there called BHE, and each time those students come in, we were able to pay them a small stipend and allow our mentors to teach them about business. And then we partnered with East Ridge. We developed tables and chairs, and we paid those students to build those tables and chairs. And we were able to sell those at ACE and then come back through and pay those students from building those. And what I did was I used some influence in the community to get guys that have owned lumber and construction companies to donate their time and go inside of the school and work with our students. And then at Howard, we were able to get in with Dr. Ware, and we built metal fire pits. And we had a contract with ACES, where ACE sold those there as well. The owner of Metal Working Solutions partners with us. But the main thing from the apprenticeship program was to bring outside individuals to share their knowledge of what made them so successful. A lot of our students that we, were mentoring to, they didn't understand the etiquette around the boardroom. They didn't understand the etiquette around business planning. And so you can play that and it'll give you a quick update of what we did.
Bill and Money Business. Tables and chairs.
This is Lou Zebo. He's from Lookout Mountain.
For the last year and a half, Brainerd students Jemiah, Ramaya, and Asia built a business.
I take on payroll and QuickBooks activating more of the financial side.
As part of the BHE apprenticeship program at Brainerd and East Ridge, helping at-risk youth find jobs to escape violence. The students' chairs and tables are now for sale at Ace Hardware. The program teaches business, woodworking, and engineering, helping the students get immediate work placements out of high school.
Yeah, you can, there's another one. If you can go back out to the beginning, if you can hit the one at the top, the first one at the top. Not that one. Yes, that one.
Well, that's the one I just hit.
Okay, all right, go to that next one.
All right.
Yeah. Oh, no, not that one. One more down.
Not only makes them
So this one.
Yeah, that one. That just gives,
Depression, anxiety, and stress rates are soaring.
healthcare crisis facing our nation today is early childhood experiences and trauma. That's why our babies struggle. Identity. That's why our babies are, you see them being really impulsive, doing things without thinking, because when they've grown up with so much trauma that it impacted the brain.
In Chattanooga are attempting to cut down on youth violence.
A mother here in Alton Park says her 12-year-old son was shot in the chest late last year. She and other
advocates are trying to stop gang and gun violence by helping kids who've experienced violence and trauma.
Just to think that you would have to bury your son. He's really a good mentor with all kids, and especially kids that's out here.
Regardless of the gun violence, regardless of the safety issues, we will come in and provide the psychoeducation around trauma. We're not being proactive. The whole city, we're being reactive. What are the stressors and the drivers and the triggers
group, The Pursuit of Happiness, here in Chattanooga.
Repeated acts of like high doses of trauma and adversity, it's likely to cause high levels of risky behavior later in life.
The nonprofit is offering free counseling to those impacted by this week's shootings.
What is the kid that did this shooting?
If more people want to just take a look at that, you can share all of those with them. Yeah, but that's just kind of some of the things that we're doing in the community. So our mission is to restore hope by alleviating the drivers of poverty, one life at a time. And what we found, it took us about 6 months to develop that mission statement. What we found is the first thing in our community, we have to restore hope. Yeah. Who is it? Dr. Perry talked about, the 3 stages or the parts of the brain where before you can regulate or before you can develop relationships, but before you can reason, you got to regulate that brain and we're going to do that by restoring hope. And then we want to alleviate the drivers of poverty. Some of those drivers of poverty are economics. Some of those drivers of poverty are mental health. Some of those drivers of poverty are academics. And so we feel like that if we can touch one life at a time and make a real impact with that one life, it's going to spread to one more friend, one more auntie, one more mother. Yeah, so these are some of the numbers. So we've served 600 families. We've made over 5,000 contacts with those families. And the way I can explain it best is a good deal of our referrals come from juvenile court. I don't know if many people here on this know about the SHOCAP program. We are the leading agency that are receiving those referrals. SHOCAP, which I think it's Severely Habitual Offender Comprehensive Action Program and these kids are youth that come from there. They're having multiple felonies before they can even be placed on the SHOCAP program, and our agency are the leading referral agency for that. And I think it's because our agency kind of culturally matches the underserved community. And before I go any further, the reason I named the agency The Pursuit of Happiness, I attended Brainerd, and I was homeless when I was 14. I used to sleep on the outside of the pavement. I hadn't told this story much, but the custodial lady there used to bring me hygiene supplies, used to let me get in early, and I met the secretary there. Secretary was Judy Vandergriff. She took me to her house, and I think I was about 15 then. Stayed the night there, woke up. Her husband came down to meet her. First time, we sitting at the table, breakfast table, and he says, "Good morning, Judy, I love you." First time I had ever heard that, and I was like, man, what was that I felt at that time? And I just promised myself that I would bottle that up, share that with my family and the community. And so I came up with The Pursuit of Happiness because everyone in this room, every kid we serve, whether they have a firearm in their hand or not, they're all in their pursuit of happiness. And so as you can see, our outcomes, we had a 75% successful discharge. 18% of that were unsuccessful. We've experienced some other. Wilson and I had a kid that we shared that was killed. He was murdered outside of his home. Wilson and I had a kid that drowned this summer that we were working with. Part of our program is we tell parents up front, like, if you're not willing to work with us and be a part of the treatment, we're not going to be able to take on your child. And so we get a little bit of pushback, but we make sure that the parents are involved. All right, you can go ahead. We're empowering communities through targeted programs and initiatives. Like I was saying, we have our CCFT, specialized therapy, that's comprehensive child, family, and treatment. We are trauma-informed. Dr. Bruce Perry is one of my mentors. And what I do is, as a consultant, I work with Howard, I work with Brainerd up in the Lookout Valley, and I go and talk to teachers about the way to kind of deal with our kids. And a lot of the teachers, when they're in the lobby or when they're walking around, when they're in the lounge, the conversation is, man, what's wrong with this kid? But I go in there and teach them a different way. We have to find out what happened to that child along the way. So if more teachers and administrators can kind of find out what happened along the way, then we can develop the appropriate interventions to help the kid. And then we also go from a trauma-informed lens. That's really important because a lot of our kids, unfortunately, and all of these things, I journal everything that we do in all the sessions that we have. From that trauma-informed lens, our kids, when they wake up, let me back up. Parents want teachers to teach to that cortical side of a child's brain, that executive function inside, right? But when they wake up in the morning, they got a high chance of being screamed at, high chance of not having adequate food. Then they're gonna stand on the bus stop and it's gonna be raining. That's gonna cause more dysregulation. They're gonna get on the bus, it's gonna be screaming, yelling, name calling, potentially go through the door. They're gonna get frowned at. They're gonna go to the cafeteria, get yelled at. And then after they are dysregulated, we place them in the seat and say, learn. And so we're trying to spread the trauma-informed lens more around so that we can make sure that our kids are regulated. All right, you can go to the next slide. These are just some photos from the top left are where we paid some mentors, some mentees to come in and learn about our business. We have some female mentors here on the left, some male mentors, some outings that occurred. All right, you can go ahead. We were able to use some of the ARPA funding, and I was able to develop, along with 3 doctors, some therapists, a program called I Am GAP. It is interventions, A&D, anger management, gang affiliation prevention, and parenting class. It is a 4-week, 8-week, and 12-week program where we're bringing kids in the A&D and the pens, the marijuana, the oils are really taking over our community. So I developed a program for that, and it was specifically designed for our urban kids to be more open and accepting to an A&D and IOP program. You can go ahead. This just this makes me really emotional because all of these, the men that you see there, donated their time. Lou Zebo donated his time. He's owned many businesses, and he donated his time to come in. Tony Young from Chambliss law firm donated hundreds of hours. And just to see our kids' emotions when we sold our first fire pit up on, we sold one at Signal Mountain, we sold 3 Highway 58 and 1 in East Brainerd. Our first student from the apprenticeship program was Joshua Hood, the kid at the bottom in the middle. He went on to college in Japan, and he's our first graduate. All right, you can go to the next one. The ARPA money was really able, because of the work we were doing and because of the impact we were having, the referrals were just so accelerated that it was just kind of difficult for us to keep up, so we had to continue to use, to go back in and tell Shelby, hey, we need to move money away from training and transportation back to personnel to meet all the referrals that we were receiving. Just some key achievements and our future goals. Go ahead. Is that it?
Questions or comments?
Any questions?
I have one. Michael, talk about follow-up after they've gone through the program, and what age do you kind of have to, I think you probably have to legally stop?
So, what's your name again?
Darren.
Darren. So we can only really keep them for 4 to 6 months. Now, if they're having some extensive issues, we extend that. But the longer we extend one child, the less we can help another child. So we try to provide some real fast pace stabilization early. Now, we do have a step-down program now to where Wilson can now be able to see them for therapy sessions. And Wilson can go, because families are not really aligned and engaged to come to us, we still go to them, even on the drop-down as well.
Glad you mentioned that, because when we talk about ACEs, something I learned about right off the bat years ago when I came into this job, and it's been incredibly educational and understanding. You said the why, and I appreciate that. It's getting the parents aligned, and the parents sometimes need just as much help and guidance and support as the children do. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's transgenerational.
Yes, sir.
Councilman Hester?
I saw where you have the mental health camps and they're doing yoga. Who do you partner with? Yeah.
Well, what we did was we went online, and one of our staff, Brianna Lee, she had friends with them, and every time we had a summer camp on that Saturday, we made sure that we had a yoga staff there. Yeah, if you'd have seen it, it was like 6 weeks just back. Because what happens is our kids, when they experience those high exposures to adverse childhood experiences, right, and trauma, we implemented the yoga so that they can practice the meditation in their room and kind of escape from the toxicity that they experience at home. Yeah, but I can provide some different ones.
Councilman Kendall?
Thank you, Chair. I'm really excited about the work that you guys are doing with Pursuit of Happiness. I've seen more brown and black people get introduced to therapy and more accepting of it, because in our communities, as you know, the stigma around it, we run away from it.
Absolutely.
So you most definitely meeting the people, the parents where they are in their homes, but just not leaving them there where you met them at is a great thing. I love the idea of you reintroducing woodshop, and it was a point where in our schools that every school used to offer woodshop. Like I remember when I took it at Orchard Knob Middle School, but it is something that I wish that the schools would reintroduce, giving our kids the opportunity to work with their hands and to become entrepreneurs and make money. The parental environment, the trauma-informed, the following up, the things that we always talk about here on council that's needed in those households, because you can imagine the trauma that a lot of the students that attend Brainerd and Howard, or even look out Valley, they're coming from areas that have been zoned from concentrated poverty. We see the data time and time again where they're headed with, single-family households that's led predominantly by the woman that's on, Section 8 assistance or government assistance in that way, and the father, the band of the family has been removed from those homes. So you ain't being inclusive, even with the father, so they know that, hey, you matter in this home and in this equation too. Like, that's very important. So I appreciate you and everything that you do, because and I'm glad to see that an organization is realizing that we gotta have something for our young ladies, because inside of that juvenile court, you go just as well as I go, and to see young ladies that's 13, 14, under the age of 18, that's committed heinous crimes, and are so angry to where that's what they think about, they wanna kill people. And that built up, that trauma that they've had, you know, over the years has led to a whole lot of stuff. So I appreciate the work that you do, it's valuable in our community. Please continue.
Thank you.
Services.
Unfortunately, the roles of our females have been determined by the popularity of guys and videos and things that they see now. And the females are accepting those roles, unfortunately.
We're gonna wrap it up with, Councilwoman Burr's question.
So I guess, I don't know if this is for you, ma'am, business. So this was a great presentation. Thank you so much.
Sure.
For all the good things you're doing. And this is a retrospective on what you've done, which is terrific. How are you planning to sustain going forward?
Yeah, so throughout this, yeah,
No, I tell you, I've been there a year.
Oh.
And it has, but my background is at juvenile court, Department of Children's Services, mental health agencies, and it has just come and come. And we've got a great relationship with Phil Yaw and everyone at juvenile court, and having known that environment, knowing a quick response, saying that we can be there, and being there beside our children, it has just grown exponentially.
How are you planning on funding from here on out? Because it was a one-time grant.
absolutely.
And you've used it well, but how are you gonna sustain all the neat stuff you're
Yeah,
doing?
great question. So sustainability was almost highlighted initially when we received the grant. Figure out a way to identify something catalytic to sustain
Right, yeah.
afterwards. And so what we work to become licensed and credentialed, so we'll be able to bill for insurance from families
Okay,
going forward.
okay.
Yeah, so we're right on that threshold of that. And so once that in, we've built some and seen some reimbursements from that.
Uh-huh.
And so the majority of our families either have WellPoint, Blue Care, TennCare, and AmeriChoice. So, yeah, we're, instead of putting them on a sliding scale, we'll be able to bill through the insurance and still provide those same services.
So you're at this stage now where you're refining your model and getting it firm.
Absolutely.
So that you're credible, which you are, but insurance credible.
Absolutely.
With TennCare, and so that's great. That's a great answer. Thank you.
Thank you for being here today and
Thank you.
updating us. We appreciate the presentation.
Thank you.
Switch out.
Yeah, I think we're gonna hear from RPA now, correct? Dan? On some equivalency maps and.
I do want to say,
Final minute. Oh, yeah, okay.
That's about
Here.
even better.
Even better, I would agree.
I do want to say there's great
That's funny, no, I don't have it up.
that have been working on this for a couple of years. We had a consultant that, I think our consultant exited the scene over a year ago. We have a lot of good GIS staff, mapping staff. We have thousands and thousands of parcels in this city, and our staff has done a great job the last few months.
I don't mind.
And I'm very impressed. We've gotten a lot of work done this year. This is a big piece of it.
Maybe live.
And I'm gonna turn it over to Karen. All right.
I have about a 10-minute presentation, but
I think it'll work.
Okay.
With it, I mean,
so as you know, for about 4 years, we've been working on the zoning ordinance and then the mapping of the new zones. So we hit a milestone yesterday at Planning Commission. Planning Commission recommended to council to adopt the official zoning map. So based on the normal schedule, that will be coming to council December 10th for the first reading. So as you know, some of this is just a reminder. We're transitioning the old zones to new zoning. The idea is to prevent non-conforming statuses as much as property, so that properties as much as possible retain their current uses and development rights, even as they transition to those new zones. So again, we're trying to pick the new zone that is most similar to the old zone and not really thinking about that one property or that one property, but really zoning in its totality.
Can I ask just one
Yes.
question, Karen? So when you're doing that,
Mhm.
do you have any situations where it doesn't work and therefore it would be a constructive taking? You know what I'm saying? My property's worth something, Jenny wants to get it, but she can't do it, so you're taking the value. That's all I wanted to know. Okay,
We are absolutely doing everything to avoid that.
okay. If you have any situation where it might be happening,
Well, Karen's gonna cover those situations in this presentation.
all I'm asking is, and I'm sure she will, all I'm asking is, do we have the fail-safe, like you go to Boza or you go to, that's cool, I just want to make sure.
We can touch on that.
2 or 3 fail-safes.
Yeah,
Okay,
a couple
thank you.
ways. And so one thing that we are doing and we can kind of end on is that we think we got it right, but if we might have to revisit stuff, so there might be a map corrections or equivalencies or something moving forward.
That's fine, I just wanted to make
Yes.
sure, I want it to succeed so badly.
Right.
I want to be able, Jenny would have to know, you know what, yeah, but you can appeal this and it's valid and something where there's not a taking.
And we've done a lot of that already, so I'll try to focus on where we've hit that to the best of our abilities and what we're thinking moving forward.
Okay, thanks so much.
Because this is a big project. And so activity to date, we developed a website. I think we talked about this. We tried to, and we heard from council that we needed to convey information clearly. I think Dr. Burr said not in planning terms. And so we did try to scrub that as much as possible. We did handouts. We had a couple of videos to kind of walk through that. So we had 2,000 hits on the map, the before and after zoning map, and about 1,700 hits on that website. We documented equivalencies. That's what you have in front of you now. And we'll talk about that. We've held several district meetings. We've been to quite a few other meetings talking about Plan Chattanooga, or the neighborhood meeting where we also discussed this. We've done a lot of outreach to development stakeholders, and anyone who called, we tried to call or email back. Then we have Planning Commission approval. We have another District 9 meeting coming up. And then I know that most people are not going to look in the newspaper, but we worked with Nicole and Phil to do a full-page legal notice in the newspaper that will detail the map and the before and after zoning. So with one of our best ways to outreach was this website. I don't know if you've been able to go to it, but it's trying to walk through why are we even doing this process. And this is a little screenshot of a before and after. You can type in your address, you can see what your current zone is, and then you can click and you can see what the proposed new zone is. And this has all the kind of frequently asked questions. And so a lot of people got to us after they checked the map and then sent staff an email. And we kind of framed it to keep it simple. You need to learn about zoning, you need to check your zoning, you need to review kind of, here's the frequently asked questions, and then you need to contact staff. So instead of you need to learn everything about zoning, we try to kind of keep it and break it up into more simple chunks, and that's how the website's set up. So this is the official zoning map that's replacing the current zoning map. We have a file so we have a digital file. The new zoning map, or the old zoning map and the new one are both digital. And if you want, we can certainly walk through that. But one of the things I think is important is these are the whereases in the ordinance. These are kind of some of the commitments we made through the process and addressing some of the items that stakeholders ask us. As a reminder, conditions carry over. We put asterisks, we bolded, we highlighted, we enforced that. One of the things we noticed when people called and they would say, but why? And we said, remember, conditions carry over. And we used conditions during this equivalency mapping process to really make sure that we were getting equivalence. So there was a lot of reading of all the ordinances. Does it have conditions? What are the conditions? So we For an example, for RTZ is one of those real broad zones that in the urban area, you can build a quad, and then out in the suburbs, you have a different, some different uses. So we went in and read conditions. If you have a condition of single-family detached only, and you're outside the urban overlay, you get a different zone. And so that's why there was a lot of looking at activity to try to get so that the new zone is most reflective and that condition still carries over. This includes special exceptions permits, including PUDs. We've cleaned up PUDs a little bit. We took this opportunity. We feel so just cleaning up the file, the new zoning, official zoning map does include those special exceptions permits. We're clear, this does not include form-based code. So in talking to folks and thinking about the impact, we kind of separated out form-based code, and then if you're R1, you're still going to be R1. Your lot size might be different, but you're still R1. And then the Planning Commission did recommend approval. We did have 3, calling them changes or outliers, and Councilwoman Burris, this is where we were trying to adapt to the feedback we got, and I'll have a little table that explains that. And then also one of the things we heard through the process is from development stakeholders, just having a place where they can go to look at the old map. So they could see what was rezoned, and then they could look at the equivalency table. And so we'll work on making sure we have a really good copy of that that's available for use. And just as a reminder that due to council's, doing the grace period or instituting the grace period, for 6 months, someone can use their current zone or their new zone. And so, and we've had quite a few conversations with people trying to decide, is my old zone better for me? Is it the new zone? But that's also the idea of it gives people more time to really understand and pick what works for them. Just a few more items. We do have an outlier zoning case that's coming up to, I think might be deferred today. The equivalency table is really, this is what we're putting in the table, in the paper. So it's tempting to be like, what about that one property? And we don't want to be arbitrary. So what our approach was, okay, A1 zone is the current A1 will be the new A1. And then we'd already talked about the R1. So we did kind of a 1-for-1. We did really start to dig down, but we're really talking about everything that's in that zone type. And so there's not, I don't think there's any one where there's only one property this applies to, except if it's noted. We had Children's Hospital was just an outlier. We needed to find something to do with it. And then Blood Assurance Building. There's just 1 or 2, but they should be noted because we're trying to be very transparent about why, if I looked at the map, I should be able to read the table and understand that my property and all the other properties in this category went from here to here. And so we're, I think, on the 3rd rendition of the this table, and we got really good feedback. It was very helpful from property owners and people in the development community to say, I'm trying to figure out the new zoning, what my development would look like under my new zoning, and I don't think you've got it right. And so we would go back and take a look at it, and that was really helpful. Just doing quite a few checks that way helped us refine the table, and we were able to address pretty much most everyone had pointed out something that they're right, we needed to do something else. And so those were, again, everyone in that category moved forward. Even if one person brought it up, it was for everyone in that category. And then we had 3 outliers, and I'm going to get to those first. So we had 3 people that said, oh, I see what you've proposed me for, my proposed equivalent zone. This other zone, actually based on what we're doing, is the correct zone. So if I'm not on the table, I'm on here. And so the first 2, CMU1 is kind of a new version of the UGC. But it doesn't allow single-family, like detached homes. The idea is you want more density, taller, more urban buildings. This case, the development was already proposed for single-family detached and townhomes. There's already TRN3 uses in the area, so staff just recommended that was a reasonable change to have a less intense zone, just to because that's the development underway. And then the last one, in looking at their zoning through this process, determined that oh, I don't want that, my condition anymore, I would like to narrow it. And so now they took out liquor store as a permitted use. It is not really kind of what we're doing here, but we only had 3, and that seemed very reasonable for someone to check their zoning through this process. And so it has been added because it does tighten the zoning. So having said that, Planning Commission did move these forward too, but everything else should align to this equivalency table. We do have a last minute change, we had everything kind of buttoned up, and then Friday, a engineer contacted us on behalf of a developer and said, what about the R4 zone? And the R4 zone is everything from hospitals to a gift shop to apartments. It's one of those really wide-ranging ones. We have 3 or 4 really wide-ranging ones. And we had already parsed the R4 zone, but they brought up a good point, and we conveyed to Planning Commission that we would need to check this, but just to be transparent, we will be moving forward the Planning Commission map, and we will bring this forward at council, because I want to be very clear. If you look at the map at Planning Commission, that's the map we have moving forward, and then we just need to spend a little time on this. And then one other correction also related to R4 is Fort Wood. There's so much institutional related to UTC, it got picked up as an institutional zone, and we are going to just correct it for the R4 designation that we already have. And so we will, the intention is this fix is underway, again, looking at the equivalency map, and then we'll just note on the website that there was an update to that. And that was explained to Planning Commission that this would be a change heading to council that we'd fix before council. This other one, we would want to communicate outside that process just for transparency. And then just a few more slides. This is closing out the current zoning map in any cases that were tabled or deferred indefinitely for an eternity. Or at least since probably 2000 when we adopted the new map around there. So we have one last case, that one that is sitting on tonight's agenda. And just to be clear that we're going to be done, we might have this one outlier that we'll have to address, but we're aware it's coming. And that is it for now. We did not have anyone come to Planning Commission in opposition. And besides the one question about the R4 that I mentioned here, we are not aware of anyone that has a particular concern or feels they weren't heard. Something did come at the Planning Commission yesterday that will respond to, I guess, kind of the question. But at this point, we don't have anything that hasn't been touched or addressed or is not being addressed that we're not aware of. And so if there is something, we'd certainly want to hear that. And so this will just be moving forward. I think something will probably pop up, particularly maybe once the paper hits the paper, but we tried to get the word out to anyone involved in the development community, neighborhood associations as much as possible.
Questions?
This has been just such a big lift. I appreciate the thoughtfulness and the level of detail y'all have brought to it. I mean, goodness knows every one of us is watchful, and thank you very much.
You're welcome. And Darian and Emily and Brian, and when I talk about, like, we read the zoning ordinances, Emily certainly did a heavy lifting of that. She's probably read every council action for 20 years maybe. And so, yes, it has been a good team project, but thank you.
A good team project.
Yes.
One of our mapping guys who's been over every parcel in the city for the last few months.
And
There's
then,
been a lot of redundancy and a lot of work put into this.
and Melanie Collins helped create the story map.
Chris was agreeing to help too.
Yes.
Y'all should get blizzards at the end of this.
Yeah.
Go for ice
Can you
cream.
get me another map of just
Yes,
District 1?
yes, I'm sorry, I
new
meant
and
to
the
say, we will do a new map series.
Okay.
And then we also, as part of this, added the open space zone, and we were able to coordinate with the county about their properties moving into open space and got that cleared up. So they were actually happy to add a few properties in, and also with real property, we added some additional properties into the open space zone that it seemed like would help them out.
Councilman?
Let me just add in accommodating requests and taking into consideration. Staff has been phenomenal. RPA staff has been phenomenal in addressing stakeholders' concerns, being flexible, amenable in addressing their concerns. And I think that even going forward, there is built-in flexibility. And I think that's what we've been trying to relay to the general public from day one, is that we intend no harm. And I think that you have exercised and put forth exactly that notion. And I appreciate it very much from my end, because I know I've sat down and did my part in working across, and the consideration taken into the map and being accommodating has just been absolutely wonderful. I think that's exactly where we need to be. And I believe 100% transparent.
Thank you for that. I will say we tried a couple approaches. There are a couple of ordinance amendments. You'll have we have one on the council agenda for final reading tonight. We have another one coming up. And so partly we've done it is, did we get it wrong? And let's look at the ordinances. Can we amend the zoning ordinance to add a use in or to provide clarity for something? So those were two ways we try to be a little bit flexible, and I think those would be tools going forward. We also know we might hear, oh, you didn't get it right, and we're ready to kind of respond at the first of the year should that happen. So thank you.
And that outlier is in Councilman Smith's district, by the way. I just want to make note of
You mean
that.
Henderson?
No, the
the cell
Tower Co.
tower.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That one out there.
I thought you were referring to the.
Yeah, it's been kicked more times down the road than,
Yeah.
so,
Okay.
if you see him.
All right. Good. Are you going over the sign ordinance?
No, I think Darian
That'll
and
be us.
covering, yes.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you all.
Bill, I think you're gonna be rooted out.
It's over here.
Yeah.
I'm just a supporter. They're gonna deal with Kai. I'm here for questions. That'd be great.
It's not too bad.
Let me ask, is this what we're gonna be considering, I guess, in a couple of weeks when we look at other amendments?
Okay.
This is different.
I got this.
Yeah. And just in case the new zoning code wasn't enough, we're gonna throw another new code at you, so,
Okay.
There you go.
So I'm Emily, I'm the principal planner. This is Darian, our newest staff planner. She's been here for about a year. We've been working on updating the sign code, which is technically in the municipal code, not in zoning. We've worked closely with our mayor partners, Chris, and our LDO partners as well.
Chris, nice to see you.
For probably about the last 6 to 7 months or so. Just a quick highlight of the things we'll be talking about. Just read that real quick. So the background. So similar to the zoning ordinance, the sign code has not been updated in a very long time. Since the 25 years that it was last comprehensively updated, state and federal law regarding signs have changed. So one of the big updates that we've done is working with Phil, also our partner, and Sean Henry, another attorney representative, making sure we are in compliance with all those new types of laws. The current code, we'll show some examples later, is all in text form. It's hard to read. It's very legalese written, a paragraph when really two or three sentences or even less could be sufficient. So we've added new graphics, tables, shortened the text. Also, the signs, if you wanted a sign variance, it used to go to the Board of Sign Appeals, but that organization was disbanded, so now it goes to the Board of Zoning Appeals. And so we had to address that in the new code. And then similar, just outdated definitions, missing and vague information, a lot of inconsistencies. between certain sections. So just really cleaning it up and trying to make it a lot more user-friendly. Did you have a question? Oh, no. So then what did not change? We are doing this in a phased approach. Phase 1 is mostly around on-premise signs, so wall signs, freestanding signs on somebody's property, like the Target, let's say, big freestanding sign. What we did not change in this round is form-based code. Form-based code has its own separate set of sign standards. Those were updated when the code was adopted in 2016, so much more recent. So we felt that we could focus on that second and do the parts that really needed updated first. The Brainerd and Level Field Gateway overlay have some sign standards. Those are not changing, staying the same. Off-premise and billboard signs, that is a bigger obstacle to tackle. There's been some pending litigation that Phil's been involved with. Definitely need more time and more public input from stakeholders on that. So we are going to focus on that section in phase 2 next year as well. Similarly, the scenic corridors. The scenic corridors now, again, were written in the 1980s, and so a lot of those areas have developed into, you know, highway commercial areas, even though they may still be designated as a scenic corridor. So looking at those to see if those need to be updated. And then lastly, non-conforming signs. That section is remaining the same as well for now. And we went through an extensive public input process over the summer. We sent out a survey to stakeholders. We also offered a send in a sign. We created an email that people, if they saw a sign that they liked or they didn't like, send it in. We want to hear your opinion. We created a website with information updates. It had the survey, it has the draft, and then had several meetings with the sign industry professionals, even had one from the International Sign Association fly out from Arizona to participate, and internal working groups with our partners that I mentioned. And took all of that information. We then did a peer review. We looked at 14 cities, some around the state, but then in other southeastern cities as well. Here's a few. And looking at ones that had updated their code within the last 5 years to see, you know, what standards did they have, and also those have all been made much more user-friendly too, so we got some ideas on graphics and tables and things. And then also used the model sign code, which was by the International Sign Association, which the gentleman, as I mentioned, flew in for. He also provided us a lot of materials. He's also going to be doing his review and sending it to us with his comments very shortly. And so now Darian is going to go into the major changes that we did incorporate into the draft.
Yes, so the draft in general got a major overhaul. So there are a lot of changes, but these are the ones that we felt have the most impact. The first is added and updated definitions. So our definitions were just very outdated, and some were pretty vague, making it really hard for enforcement, and oftentimes whenever you're reading the draft you couldn't find additional information. So we added over 50 definitions and cleaned up the ones that were vague. This will give guidance and specifications to the businesses and sign companies, and it will help our enforcement team when they go out there to have something to point to. We added more flexibility for businesses. This was something that was really important to the mayor. He wanted businesses to have just a lot more flexibility in general when it comes to their signage. So some of the ways that we did this is, one, administrative modifications. Just like with the zoning code, you can do a 10% administrative modification with this new draft that will be done by staff, and they won't have to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals for that. The second is a master sign plan. So right now, as it stands, you have to do a specific permit per individual sign. So if you have a big development, let's say like the Bend, or I'm trying to think of a smaller one, but a shopping center or something like that, you couldn't apply for a master sign plan for that. You'd have to do every single sign in an individual permit. And so this master sign plan allows them a little bit of flexibility in the fact that you have an overall amount of signage that you can do, but maybe for your particular project, it's better if this sign is bigger because it's up at the front and this sign is smaller because it's in the back, or vice versa. And so a master sign plan will allow for them to do that, and they'll be working hand in hand with our team, which will be really great.
I'll just add to it, helps the enforcement team on review, because they can review it as a comprehensive package instead of maybe getting one sign permit for the one business first, and then they might submit the rest of their signs later, and then they're having to do multiple reviews when they could just do one. So trying to have efficiency too.
Okay.
The administrative modifications where you can do a modification of up to 10% without having to go somewhere else, does that just mean that every sign in here is gonna be 10% bigger than is allowed?
There's review criteria, so they still have to show that it meets these certain review criteria, and then it's at the discretion of the staff to determine if they meet those criteria or not.
And it's all hardship criteria, so it's topography, the way that the building is shaped or how it sits. Those are all the things, and we have a list that's in there that you can read through of all the different things that could be called hardships, and so, but they have to match one of those.
And if staff is ever unclear, doesn't feel that they can make a decision, it automatically takes it to BOZA and lets BOZA do that too.
Okay.
Which is also hardship based.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's consistent.
Yes. And then last but not least for the flexibility piece is signage is allowed on right-of-way and building walls with public entrances now. So before it was just along right-of-way, but you know, we have a lot of different great walking paths and parking lots in the back of buildings, and you aren't allowed to have signage if you have a public entrance on those. And so now this will allow for you to have signage on those entrances as well, which we think will just be an added benefit to the community. Murals, our favorite topic. So as we all know, Chattanooga is a very creative city, and the mayor really wanted murals to be another outlet for this. And so the new draft has updated language so that murals can be anything besides business name, logo, or trademarked image. And while they can still do a painted wall sign for that, which is a percentage of the wall area, they can do a mural of anything else behind that, beside it, the rest of the wall, whatever they would like to do. And so right now, a mural cannot contain any image that may advertise a business. So if you're a pizza company, you can't have a pizza on the side of your wall. And we're just saying, that's silly. Let's have more art around.
The donut.
Oh, I knew you were
Yeah.
bringing it up. I knew it was coming. Bring it up. I knew it was coming.
So,
Vegetable markets had to like paint their van.
Yeah. And so we're trying to not have to have those conversations anymore. Tables and graphics, so this is just a couple of the things that we have in there, but we added, as you flip through the code, I'm sure you can see, we have added over 20 tables, and this will just helps clearly define standards for all sign types, temporary signs, lighting types, and where signs are allowed, and so much more. And we've added graphics to clearly display sign types and how to measure sign height and area so that it's very clear how to do that.
and I'll just plug thanks to Melanie and our staff who did all of the graphics for us.
Yes, she's fantastic.
Yes.
And then sandwich boards. These are all around the city, but you might not know that they are currently illegal. And so we are just not enforcing that, mostly because there's such an added benefit to our business community and the pedestrians that are around. So this not only makes them legal, but places standards for them, so they have to be within 15 feet of the entry of the business. They cannot obstruct vehicular, bicycle, or pedestrian traffic and must comply with ADA clearance and accessibility standards. And it presents a time frame as well, so they're only allowed to be out while the business is open. So it just adds guidance for our team and the businesses on what is and isn't allowed on that. Here's one of the befores and afters. This is just a small example. The top is saying the same thing as the bottom, but obviously with a lot more words. So you're just trying to make it a lot more friendly for people to be able to look through and clearly understand what's going on.
You mean you got rid of legalese?
I know, what were we thinking?
Darren, notwithstanding the foregoing, we got rid of some of that?
Yes.
That's incredible. Sorry, Phil.
And I'll note too that this is.
Legally.
Yeah, this
Just
is,
say it.
Notwithstanding the foregoing.
an example not only of formatting and easier to read, but this also shows, based on comments we received from the sign industry, that they would like to see reduced setbacks for freestanding signs, and so the bottom actually reduced that based on their comments for the needs that they needed fulfilled, and it was one of the top reasons that people applied for the Board of Sign Appeals in the past.
All right, so our timeline, the public comment closed on Friday. We are currently here presenting the draft to you, and at the end of this, we'll take questions, and of course, as you're looking through this, if you have any feedback after this, we would love your emails, calls. Please let us know how you feel about it. Then from here, we are reviewing all comments. So we've compiled all the comments into a spreadsheet. Emily and I are reviewing, putting together possible solutions for those, and then we will be talking through those solutions with our LDO team in the mayor's office to come up with the best solution in response, and then we will be handing those or sending out those responses to everyone that has supplied comments so that they can understand where we're coming from and thought process as far as that goes. Similar to what we did with the design.
Do you know how many businesses actually gave input?
I had 10 sign industry professionals give comments back on this.
Okay, but no, I guess no individual businesses.
We didn't get a lot of individual businesses, even though we reached out to the chamber and the different business organizations.
Yeah, the North Shore Business Association, and a couple others that we had reached out to. They all supplied feedback in the survey originally that was sent out, and that survey feedback was used to create this document.
I would say, probably because if you're a business owner, the first step you make was contacting a sign company. And that sign company you're going to lean on very heavily to carry through all the permitting and explaining to you what the city's sign code is. And that was, and hopefully will be changed soon, a very complex and tedious situation. And so I think that's probably why you may not have gotten businesses individually, but more of the sign industry.
So I'm thinking about lights on signs. And I will read all this and perhaps have my questions answered, but I'm thinking about like windows that are full of like blinking LED signs and signs that are very bright with the new LEDs and like the billboards that are super bright. We've had constituent issues with lighting just as lighting has evolved.
Yeah.
So can you give us a brief insight into that? And like, are we gonna still have like entire storefronts of blinking
Flashing
lights selling vape?
Yeah, so flashing and blinking lights are prohibited in this.
Well, they sell a lot of vape, the kratom, I don't know what that is, but they sell it, blinking light. I think it must blink, I don't know.
Yes, so I actually had that question written down as one that might come up. And so the zoning code section 3847 exterior lighting controls prohibits the LED lights around windows and doors. So that is in that control. As far as signage specifically, we do have lighting standards in here, and we do not allow prohibited flashing and blinking lights.
Period.
So as period.
Period.
And dimming requirements at night, so they can't be as bright like the big
Now, is that for exterior signs or interior signs?
We do not control interior signs. The sign
So if
code-
if we were hanging blinking signs on all of these windows inside, we can do whatever we want.
So actually, that is another major change of the sign code. Before this sign code, anything that was on the inside of the window could not be regulated. We did change that to signs, window and door signs are anything on the inside or the outside of the window that can be seen from the street. So that's a new update, and that is regulated, and so that is prohibited in this code.
So the blinking is like an entire wall of blinking signs. They're going to go dark now.
Well, it just wouldn't be allowed.
Yeah, they're prohibited. They are not allowed. So either they
So they
cannot
will go
blink
away.
at all, or they need to be taken
The
down.
existing would be grandfathered in.
that's what I think the council, Madam Vice Chair is asking, will the current blinking LED lights go away? And the answer to that is no. Right?
If they're permitted.
If they're permitted.
Yeah.
If they're not permitted.
If they're not
We can
permitted,
decide them as soon as this takes effect.
yes.
And none of them are currently permitted on the
So they
inside
go
of
away.
windows because
So
we weren't able to regulate before this code comes.
walk us through what that looks like.
Yeah.
Because I know, you know, that came up with me in our update.
It's not just me.
Oh, no. We're on the same page.
I think
Council,
that's
let
where,
me remind you, it's 3:16 now. I need to give you a little break before we head into our 3:30, so.
This is our last
We need
slide,
this, okay.
and then we're moving to questions. So I guess just to kind of wrap this up, we're going to go through all the comments, review and update the draft by December 5th. We are planning to bring this in front of you guys on December 10th. So we just wanted to give you an update on that.
and back to the, what do we do moving forward is working with LDO and enforcement. And once the new code gets adopted, then they could start an enforcement protocol if they, to start telling those businesses, this is no longer allowed, and
In how many weeks?
that would be worked out with Bill Gore, I suppose.
Whenever you make it effective.
Yeah.
What
And
is the,
so
what will the resolution or the ordinance have on it?
I was planning on, and we've only briefly talked about this, so it probably will change, but similar to right now with the master sign plan, the administrative modifications, and the permits just needing to be changed in general, we'll need anywhere from 30 to 60 days to update those processes. So we would assume that if it came in front of you guys on December 10th, I probably would say 60 days with all the holidays that are in there. December 10th, a 60-day effective date, so you're looking at February 10th.
March 1st.
Or yeah, March 1st.
Council, would you like another strategic planning meeting on the 3rd, give you time to read through this, digest it, or are we good?
I have read it, I have studied it, I have met with staff on this and made my comments and changes, requests.
Okay.
I am good, sir. I am excited to see a sign code for this city that makes sense.
I think it's necessary,
You think it's necessary?
right.
To have a strategic planning?
Strategic,
Yeah, we got a lot of signs on Highway 58. So,
But I am more than happy to sit here.
Today,
and talk
Another
about it.
meeting is necessary, or the new code is necessary?
I'm fine for the
For
3rd.
the code,
but I have-
okay.
Oh,
Okay, he thought you meant the
Can we-
meeting.
No, he's
Jeff,
saying
hang on.
code.
He's saying the code is
Code is
necessary, not another
necessary.
meeting.
right.
Oh,
not the, yeah. We're on.
so you don't need a December 3rd,
No, I'm gonna read through this,
okay?
and if I have a question, I'll call you guys.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, well, the question I have is, I think this is so important, and there's a lot of topics, there are a number of topics you weren't able to address,
Highway 58.
which are equally important, and I'm wondering if we can move forward any sooner with some.
Are you asking about the billboards?
Well, we've got the billboards, we've got the scenic highway, I mean, there's a lot of stuff.
We anticipate on both the zoning ordinance and this stuff, we're gonna keep moving through all of it next year.
Oh, okay.
I mean, because they're all important, I completely agree, but we want you to know, this is gonna be a kind of a regular process.
Well, I'm good with that. I don't need another meeting for that. Those were my questions. The other thing is that the appeal now is to BOZA. Then, if I don't like the outcome, where do I go? Chancery Court? So it doesn't come back to council in any way at all? Okay.
I have one question. If you don't have a sign, but you have it on a truck that's next to a building, is that illegal?
So if it is stationary, then
Love
then
children.
Like
it is
park.
prohibited. However, if you have a fleet of vehicles, like say for an HVAC company that has your name on it and you are constantly taking them out, that is fine.
This one's stationary, it
No.
never moves.
That is prohibited.
A broken down vehicle.
Yes. And so we actually, one of our
Wow.
sign industry partners made the comment that they'd like to see a definition for stationary, because we just had stationary. So we are going to be adding like specific parameters around that as well,
Good back.
to make that more clear.
Goodbye, Love Shack.
We knew about the love shack.
Well, yeah, we have inoperable, but the days are in there, so if it's 30 days or longer, then that makes it become stationary.
Wow.
So,
Thank
Because you have to give people time to fix a vehicle if something went wrong or something like that, so.
Don't we know
Right.
it?
Yeah.
Thank you,
To
ladies.
the,
Okay,
Appreciate
thank
it.
to the zoning, or the,
Council, before
codes
I let you go,
choir.
I need to bring up one other thing on some vacancies that we have on our boards. And we have a few that are becoming critical. If you'll take a look, Animal Control Board, passenger vehicle for hire board, and then our Health, Education, and Housing Board. Those are some critical boards that we need appointments to right away. So if you're on that list, please consider making some appointments. Okay?
Working on them, yes, sir.
I'm sorry?
I'll answer questions.
Okay, Chris will answer any question that you might have about a board. All right, you dismissed. I'll see you at 3:30.
Hey,
You can put District 2 people on all those boards if you want.
So, from day one, I brought up the